Hey, I am with David Sachs on today's No Fear podcast, and we had started just a little preamble. And I said, "What am I doing? I always go live. I don't rehearse stuff. We just get in here." And what I was telling David is that he's a police officer in Southern California, and he's got a pretty amazing story he's going to share. But the what I was saying in the preamble, I said, "Hey, what am I doing? Like, I'm going to just start recording this." Is we have a lot of law enforcement, a lot of military, a lot of just citizens who listen to the show who want to understand more about managing fear, understanding self-defense, understanding mindset, and you have an amazing story, and that's the reason I invited you on here. You contacted me. It was I just pulled it up. I think it was last October 2017. All right, around then. Yeah. And what was interesting is you contacted me, and again, no rehearsal. We didn't discuss this. It was like, "Hey, come on the show and talk about this." You had a pretty serious, the most serious incident you could possibly have, and you've been cleared to talk about it. But why don't you just jump in and we'll meander through there? But introduce yourself and tell the folks what happened.
So my name is David Sachs, and I am a law enforcement officer down in Southern California. I've been in law enforcement for about 9 or 10 years, and I've had some hairy situations, but this is by far the most crazy situation I've ever had. I've never had someone straight out, flat up, right in my face, try and kill me. And
Right.
This guy did. He tried to kill me.
And why don't you, just so people can just visualize this, and of course, all the police and some of the other first responders who move towards the danger and have been, ambushed, sudden violence when you're trying to do the right thing, you're trying to, help people. It could be an ambulance, EMT, it could be a firefighter. I mean, I've had the craziest stories, where a firefighter goes, "Yeah, and this person tried to kill me." I was like, "What? You're a firefighter? Holy shit!" Right? But you're a police officer. You went to a domestic.
I wasn't even a domestic. It came out as a neighbor dispute.
Right.
Straight from the academy. I say it's funny. I've got a weird sense of humor, but it is kind of funny, because they teach you nonstop in the academy, like, these are the worst ones, because you don't know what you're walking into. You don't know the past. You don't know the dynamic between them. You don't know how violent they've gotten or going to get. You're
right.
just going in blind. And I look at things in a different way. Like, a lot of people, they lift weights, they try and get big, they try and rely on sheer intimidation. I kind of just treat people like people until they give me a reason not to.
Right.
Then I don't treat them like that. I treat them the way that they deserve to be treated.
So walk us into this. You got called, and just walk us through this.
I got called, and it came out as a neighbor dispute. So we usually run at least 2 officers per incident. So myself and my partner went to the incident. And he actually had the chaplain on a ride along with him. So our department has a chaplain, which is, you'll see later, it's kind of all pretty interesting. But we responded to the call. We go to the victim first, find out, hey, what happened? I did not expect him to say, "Hey, I was hanging out. I heard this yelling. I went in the backyard. There was this guy sticking his head over the fence, and he's shouting all kinds of crazy stuff and all kinds of vulgar things at me. And then he throws this at me," and he points, and it's a piece of concrete about this big.
Wow.
Yeah, threw it right.
And for people, just, this is going to be audio and it's released. So David held up his hands. It was like bigger than a softball, smaller than a bowling ball, like something that would smash your face open if it hit you.
Oh yeah, if this thing hit you, basically what it was back in the day, they used to take coffee cans and fill them with concrete and use them like cinder blocks.
Right.
That was.
Wow.
It was a can size of concrete. And at first I was like, he couldn't have thrown it that hard. I mean, it's pretty heavy.
Right.
On that, the guy is 6'3", 285 pounds. So he could throw it pretty far.
Right.
Luckily, the victim was pretty athletic, and he dodged it, but it still hit his shoulder and left a mark. So, it's that right there. It's assault with a deadly weapon. So things change at that point.
Right.
You have one side, you get the other side, and somewhere in the middle is usually the truth. So before you go just taking one side's word for it, you go talk to the other side. And we have 2 officers, so we're in compliance. So we figure out which house it is, and we go around to the other side. We park, and a lot of the stuff I'm going to say, I swear Tony did not tell me to say this. It
Right.
just kind of is, you know, and you get a weird tingly, kind of like something's not right, you know, but sometimes you get that and you just push through.
So let me backtrack, because you said something very interesting there that maybe that listeners won't readily understand what you meant by Tony didn't tell me to say this. What do you mean by that? Explain that.
You always talk about like trusting your gut, trusting your instinct. And if your body is telling you, hey, something's not right, you get a chill across your face, it goes down the back of your neck, and you just
Right.
like, something is not right. I don't know if I should keep moving forward. Like, I had that exact feeling.
So full transparency, what's interesting is at the time you had done was it the 1-day course to do with CrossFit?
I did. I think it wasn't it. I think it was a 2-day.
2-day, the 2-day version. Because we had a couple of versions there. We had a 2-day trainer and a 1-day athlete.
Yeah, it was the defense one in Texas.
Yeah. So just so people know that, you know, when I do this, because, there's a lot of people who go, oh, you can't learn to defend yourself in a day. And on the 2-day course, like it's day 1 and day 2, we come back and it's basically, if you were going to practice and train these drills, here's what you did. It's a 1 day times 2 where you're practicing the teach backs on day 2. But the biggest message we tell people is every victim of violence, whether you're a first responder, whether you're law enforcement, military, whether you're a citizen, every victim of violence who lived to tell the tale said they had a bad feeling before the attack. So I always talk about choose safety, trust your gut. So that's what David was referring to. So you understand that he had been exposed to our stuff. And what was interesting when he called me, and this will get interesting because so much of what we talk about ended up manifesting. Mm-hmm. Okay, so go on. So you got this bad feeling.
So we approach the door and things are very calm. No one yelling, very quiet. We go up, we knock on the door, and I've seen the body-worn camera from my side and from my partner's side, and you can see that I have my hand on my taser, which is kind of not abnormal, but I remembered when I saw it, I was like, yeah, I remember I had my hand on the taser ready just in case he came out, super aggressive and tried to come at us. I was ready to take action. And we knock on the door and we hear this little old lady and she says, hello. And I'm like, oh man, we got pranked. This is BS. There's no way that this old lady is,
right.
Maybe it's the wrong house. Like, no way.
Right.
She answers the door. It's this really calm old lady with her dog in her hand. And I said, hey, how you doing? We came over here to talk to you about someone in this house possibly throwing something over the fence. And she goes, oh, that's my son. So I'm like, okay, right house. And she says, he's inside. I said, well, we'd like to talk to him. Is he normally violent? And she said, well, not usually. And no joke, you can watch the body-worn camera. My next response is I look at my partner and go, famous last words, huh? And I was just like, in retrospect, it's kind of like, it was telling me again, like, hey,
right.
Right. So I press on, and when you walk into the house, it's an older home. So you walk in, it's double doors, and there's a very small like foyer, big enough for two to three people. So I step in first, my partner steps in behind me, and then the chaplain starts to follow us in. And I go to the right, and she says, David, funny enough, his name's the same as mine, was the same as mine. The police want to talk to you. And all I heard was, oh yeah? And as I stepped through the doorway, wham, 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 wham. And I'm just like dazed, didn't expect it. Had no clue this guy was coming at me. All of a sudden, as I round the corner, this big guy is coming at me with what I think he's punching me, and he gets me 2 or 3 or 4 times. And I just kind of put my hands up instinctually and dropped back, and things just slowed, like complete slow motion, like weird.
Right.
And again, people talk about it. They're like, oh, things went into slow motion. I was thinking this, I was thinking that.
You guys can't see the video of this, but it's great. But when David was kind of like reliving this, and I'm on video here, so I can see him. What he's doing is, fingers splayed, his hands covering his head, the primal flinch that we talk about. And this bypasses cognition. The slow motion effect from survival learning research is called tachypsyche. It's a big fancy word where what's happening is your brain is processing things so fast that everything but the essential movement required for you to think about your survival is what is being captured. And so everything else looks like it's in slow-mo. Okay, go on. So you're moving backwards, super slow motion. You've been hit 3-4 times.
He hits me. I can feel, I've had my nose broken a couple times. I played ice hockey, so I kind of know the feeling of a broken nose. And first thing I thought was, I can't believe this guy just hit me. Like he hit me. I let him hit me. And then next thing I thought was, things just took a real quick turn because I could feel blood spewing out of my mouth.
Right.
And I was like, my nose isn't broken. That's not this guy's going to fucking kill me.
Right.
He'll fucking kill me if I don't do something. And I dropped back, got everything I had, and just launched him. And I say launched him, like, again, I don't consider myself any kind of a badass whatsoever. I was trying to live.
Right.
And I threw this 6'3", 285 man through a doorway. And as he's falling backwards, I'm already coming on top of him thinking, I'm going to get his hands, I'm going to cuff him up, and I'm going to get safe.
When you projected him off you, again, people can't see this. I can, so I'm enjoying this. Can you describe what do you remember what you did? Because what I saw was both your hands come out and you went core to extremity, fingers splayed, driving him away.
I cocked back.
Right.
Half crouched just enough to get some propulsion.
Right.
Just exploded and pushed with both my hands as hard as I could, like a wall ball or a thruster, and just get some
again, a serendipitous smile on my face, because this is what we talk about with your body startle flinch response, the power and speed of your survival reflex. And what David is visually describing there is what we call the protective spear, which is this mechanic where both hands index a threat and you drive them away. And I had like, this is the first time we're going, because the first time we talked about this was just on the phone. I couldn't see you. So this is the first time I'm actually seeing you describe it, but you were pushing away danger essentially. Yeah. So I got little goosebumps visualizing that, and kind of neat. So you threw this guy 280 pounds through this doorway, and you're engaging him, thinking, I'm going to go control and arrest him.
I got on top of him and kind of half crouched down to pin my knee against his chest to keep him from getting back up. And I'm going for his hands, and he's like, looks like he's flailing.
Right.
As I grab, I see him go like this and stab my arm, and got me just above my femoral artery.
Wow.
And he stabbed me and blood shot out, and I was like, oh fuck, he just stabbed me. And the next thing I could think was my partners, he's going to stab them. So I just screamed at the top of my lungs, knife, knife, knife. And I backed away. His mother was still behind me.
Right.
And again, things went super slow motion, slower than before. And all I could think was, I have to move slow. I have to move accurately. I have to get my gun out. If I stutter with my gun, he's going to be on top of me, and I might not be so lucky. I don't know how bad my wounds are. Again, he's going to kill me. So I backed away. I pushed her behind me. I drew my weapon and fired. I don't remember how many shots, but I fired shots as I drew my weapon, he was already up and coming at me again.
Wow.
And it was just silence. It could have been the gunshots. It could have just been like the adrenaline dump and loss of hearing. I didn't lose any memory. I didn't fall. I didn't have any blackout spots like people talk about, which I thought was weird. I just shot, and when he went down, I was just trying to think, hey, okay, what do I need to do next? All right, I don't know how bad my injuries are. I need to check on my partners. I need to get on the radio and let everybody know what's going on. So I got on the radio. I put it out as calmly as I could. I couldn't hear. I didn't know if it was going out. I didn't know if anyone heard me. And he was still there, and I didn't know if he was, stopped or not.
Right.
And so I was like, all right, well, I've got to get out of here away from this danger. In case he gets back up, I've got to get myself out of here. So I got out of there and I started walking out the front door, and the chaplain was the first one that I saw. And funny enough, he actually married my wife and I. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah, we have a pretty close relationship with him. And I looked at him and I said, Wes, you got to take my gun, because I couldn't open my hand, because he stabbed me in my shooting arm. And for some reason, I couldn't open my hand.
Right.
So he took my gun, and then he was for someone who's not a cop, who's not used to violence, he was pretty calm.
Right.
But I just kept thinking, if I'm going to live, I have to be calm. I have to calm the people around me. I have to help them treat me so that I can get through this, because I don't know how bad it is. I don't know where he got me, where he didn't get me. I don't know if I have skin hanging off my face. I just don't know. All I know is I'm spitting out blood. I can't even take a breath without blood pouring down.
Wow.
So he gets my gun, he secures it, and then he starts kind of like panic, trying to get my body armor off. And I just looked at him and I said, Wes, I'm good. The clips are on the side. Take them off. Get my armor off. Take off my blouse. You got to check my wounds, find out which one's worse, and start treating it. Do you have a tourniquet? Slowed down and realized, okay, he's not freaking out, so I'm not going to freak out. So we got a tourniquet, got the tourniquet on my arm, and started assessing my other wounds. I had 2 stab wounds to the back of my head that were pretty big. I had 3 stab wounds on my face, 1 on the bridge of my nose, 1 under my left eye, and 1 on the left side of my face, right below my temple.
That's close to that artery there.
I tell everybody that asks me, I'd say if you're going to get stabbed like I did, I think someone was looking out for me, because those are the luckiest stab wounds you could possibly have. Because had this one on my bridge of my nose been lower, it would have gone through the cartilage. Right. Had this one under my eye been half an inch higher, I would have lost my eye. Had this one been half an inch higher, it would have gone through my temple.
Right.
Had this one on my arm been a little bit higher, it would have hit my artery and I could have bled out right there.
Right.
So, I mean, I'd say, like I said, if you're going to get stabbed, that's probably the luckiest. And then it was like, I'm out of danger. I'm getting treated. I don't feel lightheaded. I don't think I'm going to pass out. And then I no joke, it was like the cavalry was coming. Like every single unit that we had was coming down that street, reds and blues. And it was just like complete calm. I was like, okay, I'm good. I'm good. My brothers and sisters in blue are here. I'm going to get taken care of. I'm good. And
wow.
Then I had to make the worst part. I had to call my wife, because she's going to find out. My wife is also an officer with us.
Okay.
She's on the same department. She's on patrol with me. So she knows.
Yeah. You don't want her to hear a broken telephone rumor.
Yeah. Well, not even that. Like someone's going to call her and say, hey, are you okay? And she's going to be like, what are you talking about? She's
right.
Like, your husband got stabbed. Are you okay? And then that's it. She'll freak.
Sure.
I asked the chaplain, I said, hey, I know you don't want to, but you gotta call my wife, because she's going to freak. So he called her and got her on the phone, and I just heard her screaming, and I was like, oh crap.
Right.
I don't want her to freak out. So I took the phone and I answered it, and I said, babe, I'm okay. Listen carefully. I have 2 frozen meals in the fridge I need you to grab. They took my food and I'm really hungry. Trying to like lighten the mood.
Right.
If I'm hungry, I must not be that hurt.
Right.
So
did that work? Did she a
little bit, but
right.
Not enough. I mean, she loves me very dearly, and I'm very lucky to have her.
It must be. Let me insert something here. Like that is, and I know a lot of couples that are both in law enforcement or both in some emergency services, and it's amazing to me because I know many more people who their spouse is going out, and you just it's one of those. It's especially this last 8 years of being a cop or being in the military, the level of disrespect you guys get, and and on top of that, even if things were good, it's like, you don't know what you're going to face. It's, all fights are dangerous, but the one you didn't agree to, it's one of the lines from our seminars is like, every fight is dangerous, but it's the one you didn't agree to. That's the one that's really dangerous, because there's no emotional, psychological preparation. And, something like this. So as a police officer, you go out there and you theoretically and literally risk your life potentially every single night. What is that like when your wife goes out, and vice versa? Obviously, this is really, you guys have no doubt talked and thought about this, but now that it's real, you hear her freaking out.
It's I was in the military for 11 years, and I've been in law enforcement for, like I said, 9-10 years. So like, since I was 18, I've been writing that check, saying I give my life in the service of others if need be. And I've always kind of compartmentalized it. I've always tried to look at it like, this is a reality. And anyone who is in this field that does not think this could be the day that I die is cheating themselves and everyone around them, because your decisions should be influenced by knowing that you gotta live your life to the fullest and not be afraid of things and not let it control you. Like you talk about with the fear loop, like once you hear stuff like that, it influences your decisions. And with my wife and I, we've talked about it. Sometimes we'll, I know it's demented, but we'll joke about it. Like, oh, if you go, I'm taking your car.
Right.
You know what I mean? But it's, in reality, it's not something you ever want to think about, is the loss of your spouse. It took me 36 years to find her, and I'd be hard pressed to find someone else that was this amazing.
Right.
Feels the same, but we have talked about it. When she goes out, I just, we always say, I love you. We never end a phone call with a fight. We never walk away from each other and go to work angry. We always talk to each other. We always run things by each other. And when we're out in the field, we'll bounce things off each other sometimes, but we'll always keep in touch. And I just kind of think my wife is smart enough, and she's been in this long enough that she knows not to make stupid decisions. So she'll do things that will minimize the risk that she's taking.
Right.
It's the best that you can hope for. Because other than that, it's the wolves and the sheepdogs, and if no one stands up for those who can't stand up for themselves, it's a shitty world. So
right.
You have to be those people.
It's interesting. The advice and the rituals that you two share are profound, because you're both police officers married to each other. But I couldn't help but think while you're saying that should be the rule for every couple, right? Right. Always say you love you. Don't go to bed angry. Don't go to work angry. It's amazing. But in a career where you move towards the danger, the rest of us can run away. We call you when we need some sort of intervention, right? Just like you got a call for the that's that crazy scenario. Did that event change how you moved or thought afterwards? I mean, you had a significant experience, prior military, and then a decade in law enforcement. But, I always tell people, like, hey, are you training for your next fight? Or are you training for your last fight? Most people train for their last fight. Most people are thinking about, well, last time this happened. And then that impacts how they think and how they move, either overconfidently, or they're in that like unconscious fear loop. So how did you bounce back, respond, or react to this?
That's definitely not a simple question to answer. Before this, I mean, when I started in law enforcement, I kind of had leftovers of the military. It's like, get up, you work out, get ready for work, go to work, and, try and kick ass the best you can. And that kind of started to evolve as I was in law enforcement longer and longer. And, and I swear I'm not plugging CrossFit, whatever workout you have, it's not the mode of discipline. It's what you're doing when you do it. So like I was doing a track run one day with my friend, and, there was these track and field high school kids and their coach was like an ex-SEAL, and he was asking me, hey, what are you training for? And I looked at him and I was kind of like, training for life.
Right.
And he was just kind of like, what? I don't. I was like, I'm training for life. I'm in law enforcement. If I'm not fit, I'm dead.
Right.
So when I work out, I go towards the uncomfortable pain. I can't breathe. I can't move. Oh my God, I'm going to die kind of a thing. You're not, You're working out. So you're teaching your brain in horrible circumstances where you can't breathe and your body's fatiguing, that you can fight through it. It's not your body, it's your mind that's deciding. Your mind decides, your body follows. And it really is the truth. When I did that, it wasn't because I was fit. I happened to have changed my training, and I work with a coach, and my coach, I told him, hey, this is my goal. My goal is, to be a more capable, better cop physically, and to pursue, the SWAT team. So we were training, it was, combat type, high intensity training. So whether or not that had a thing to do with it, I don't know. But when I got in that situation, my desire to live and not lose overran his desire to kill me for whatever it was, and people need to think about that. When you get into this, you sit in a car most of the time, and then you get out of the car. So it's like sedentary and then bursts of energy where you're on your feet and you're chasing people, and it's at unknown intervals. Just like you said, like it's the fight you didn't agree to. That's any second. At any second you could be in that fight, and you're not going to be able to like, all right, hold on a second. I get my warm up in. I got to, do my ROMWAD and get all ready. Okay, let's do this. No, it's I'm going to kill you because of what you're wearing, because that badge on your shoulder, on your chest, I'm going to kill you. And you either decide, no, you're not, or you give in and you quit and you just let it come over you, and that's the end.
Well, a lot of that, and I'll go back to, high intensity workouts, and specifically CrossFit, because I've, been involved with the community for over a decade. And a lot of people for years, thought that maybe I was profiting from it. I was involved financially. I dug the workouts for the exact reason you did, because I've been in the ring and sparring and doing multiple assailant scenarios and stuff like that. And I can't even count how many times I wanted to hear the bell ring, because I wanted to pass out, that I was either ready to throw up on my training partner. I wanted to quit. I was going to throw up. I got hurt. I got hit. And I see three of them in front of me, and I, thinking back to the joke of hit the guy in the middle. If somebody hits you so hard, you see three of them. And there were so many times, and I never ever let myself quit. And so when I was doing CrossFit, it was interesting, because just that idea, and what I said early on, it was an interview that I had. I don't know, I forget what magazine it was. And I said, like, the workouts are so short and intense, they remind me of fights, and they're more like mentally ambushing and exhausting. And so you're 100% right, David. There, that you don't have to be a cop to benefit from that, because life, our military and our law enforcement have a greater frequency of those spontaneous, I'm sitting now, I'm running really fast and somebody's trying to punch me or shoot me or whatever. Obviously much more than if you're an accountant or a lawyer but all of us, everyone's life relative to their life is a roller coaster. Mm-hmm. Right. And the more mentally tough you are, the more you handle any of the rides.
Yeah.
Right? And so, so you said a couple of times that you don't know if your fitness level helped with you dealing with that scenario. Of course it absolutely did. I mean, if you're 30 pounds overweight, and you got scared, you wouldn't have pushed away danger. You would have gone fetal. Right. And it's interesting because when somebody does, and I wish you guys could see this, but you can't, when there's a primal flinch, like how did a guy in front of you stab you twice in the back of your head?
I'm guessing it's when I turned and.
Right. So you remember in the primal flinch, your body turns away. So a lot of stab victims actually on frontal attacks, there will actually be marks on their traps and their back because the initial primal movement is cover the head and turn away from the danger. You need to cognitively override that and face the threat and face the danger. And that's the training. That's the big training that we do is metaphorically and physically and tactically, you need to move towards danger to handle danger. Yeah. So all of it came together, all of your training. It wasn't just our training. It was your firearms training, your fitness, your military, every coach you've ever had. Plus, at the end of the day, you're the tactical athlete in the metaphoric ring. Yeah. We could be yelling on the side there, Dave, do this, but like if you're not game and you're not, you said it a couple of times, you got to be ready to fight for your life. This guy's trying to kill you.
In actuality, I mean, that whole movement in my head, it was like, 2 minutes. It was in actuality, probably 5 seconds.
Yeah.
It was, if you can imagine a collapsing corkscrew and then recoiling.
Yeah.
Is exactly what it was. Like you said, I had this startle flinch and I shrinked away and made a decision that I wasn't going to be a victim, and unwound and attacked as fast and as hard as I could to get my point across, and and my point was, you are not going to take me. It's not going to happen. If you're going to try and kill me, it's not going to happen. I will not let you.
How did, so we never really got to it, but now when you were cleared to go back to work and all of that, ghosts, overthinking stuff, clear. How was your head after that? Can you talk about that?
I knew you were going to ask me this, and I kind of thought about it. Like, how do I want to portray myself? Do I want to allow people to see the vulnerability, or do I want to just overshadow it and be like, fuck yeah, bring me some more? Everyone reacts differently.
Right.
I couple things. When I took this job, there is a question that they ask you that I think a lot of people glaze over, and they just answer it because, you're supposed to say yes. They ask you, do you have a problem killing someone if you need to with your firearm? And everyone's like, oh yes, no problem. You should really think about that question when they ask it to you, because there's not many jobs where someone will ask you, are you willing to take someone's life? And it shouldn't be something that you look at lightly, because there is no joy in taking anyone's life. There isn't. I don't care what anyone says, they're either demented or they're just trying to hide the true fact is that they're all messed up from it. I got messed up from it. It wasn't that I felt bad that I took his life, because he tried to kill me. I didn't ask him to do that. He did.
Right.
This. He made his choice. I made mine. I shot him to stop him from hurting me. Unfortunately, those gunshots took his life. So I take no joy in it. And I was pretty fucked up. Pardon my language, but I was pretty fucked up when I called you, because I was just searching. Like, this is not something that I'm accustomed to. This is strange, thoughts and emotions. Like, how do I deal with this? How do I go back to work? How do I walk through doorways anymore without thinking someone's going to stab me? Do I flinch every time there's a gunshot? Do I, and like I said, it messed me up, and it took 6 months physically and mentally for me to come back to work. And it was not a hard choice, because no joke, like 3 weeks after, when I was, the stitches were starting to come out, I told my wife, I was like, can I go back to work? Not that I'm not asking for her permission, but we're a couple, and I can't just make decisions on my own. And this is serious. Someone tried to kill me. She should have a part in it.
Right.
I asked her, hey, are you ready for me to go back to work? And she's lost it. She's completely lost it. And I was like, okay, I need to get healed up. I needed a lot of physical therapy. I had no feeling in my right arm. I had headaches. I couldn't sleep. And it wasn't the psychological stuff. It was basically, from what the doctors told me, it was post-concussive syndrome, because I got racked in the brain so many times by a big dude. It rattled my brain.
Right. With a knife. It wasn't just his fist too.
Yeah. Mind you, it was a 9-inch steak knife that he stabbed me with.
Holy shit.
Yeah, it wasn't a little pocket knife. And it definitely, it rattled me. And I'm not a touchy-feely kind of guy. I'm generally, I've probably cried 5 times in my life. I just don't cry. My dad always taught me, crying doesn't fix anything. You solve your problems. They're your problems. They're not going away until you deal with them.
Right.
I sought out help. I sought out, people to talk to, people who had been involved in these things. And I compared how they felt with how I felt and realized, you know what? This is all totally normal. Everything I'm going through is completely normal. I just need to let it run its course and keep talking about it and get past it. And I did. I got past it, and I got to the point where, I told my wife, hey, it's time. I'm going back to work. And no joke, the first weekend back, we ended up on a call of a barricaded, it's a 5150, is someone who is mentally diseased, schizophrenic, bipolar, something like that. And he was barricaded in his home. He was putting pesticides out throughout the whole home. And he had made these little cubbies throughout that he was climbing through. And he had priors on the house for, trying to hurt cops, trying to suicide by cop. And he has improvised weapons. And I'm sitting on a perimeter at this call. And in my head, that little voice is just going, this is not a good idea. I'm going to speak. If they decide they're going in, I'm not going to let them. They're not going in. There's no good side of this. I know where this is going to go, and there's no point. So, I waited. I sat my perimeter, and when the sergeants came on scene, I told them flat out, I said, hey, I will go in. If you want us to go in, I will go in, but we will go in hard and we will go in prepared. We do not need to go in here. This guy, we don't, if he's the only one in there and he's the only one who's going to hurt himself, why are we pressing the issue? Why do we want to risk a shooting? And they listened, and we all talked about it and decided, hey, you know what? We're going to stay off on this one, and we'll come back at another time. This is just, he's not a danger to anyone but himself right now. And, we're not going to risk our officers. So we let it be, and we did not make entry. But in my back of my head, I was just like, fuck, man, seriously? First weekend back, I'm going to go right back in again? Right. But if they want me to, I'm going to. I'm not going to be paralyzed by the fact that could happen. Because
was there any happy ending to that, or just dissipated that particular call?
It dissipated, and they went back later at another time when he was a little bit more stable, and they dealt with him at that time. But it's not, that call's not going away. I just use that as an example that out of the frying pan into the fire kind of thing. Right. It just kind of, it is what it is. And, your eyes.
Well, a lot of times, it reminds me, of, one of the most potent parts of our course is the notion of choosing safety. And we always tell people we end every single drill and every concept with the making fun of the hashtag. We say hashtag choose safety, and we actually say it all the time, right? As you know, hashtag choose safety. Mm-hmm. And just so it sticks, because it becomes redundant and almost silly. We're making fun of the hashtag thing. And so we'll go blah, 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 hashtag choose safety, blah, 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 hashtag choose safety. And a lot of people confuse choosing safety with playing it safe. And they're completely different. Choosing safety is going, okay, this guy is right now, he's so wired and jacked up that he's going to attack anybody that comes in, and we're going to end up either being maimed or killed or killing him. But because another part of our de-escalation strategy is this concept that no one can sustain an adrenaline dump indefinitely by themselves. That if no one else is in danger, all you need to stand there is just stand there and wait. And eventually that person on their own will just start to come down. And at some point you can go, hey, like, can we talk? And they're going to go, yeah, what is it? But there's a moment, a really dangerous moment. And this is, I think a lot of people make the mistake in relationships, in law enforcement, in negotiation, where somebody is so fucking angry and so pissed off that they're, you know, like it's just this. And that's what we mean by choosing safety. What's the safest thing you can do during D1, detect and avoid the situational phase? What is the safest thing that you can say and think to yourself during the defuse, the de-escalation? And then what is the safest thing you can do during the fight? And people confuse this, and I'm glad this worked its way into the conversation, because it's something that I really think can influence everybody, whether you're a cop or just general public. That the safest thing that you can do, for example, when somebody's trying to kill you is, and you can't escape because you're in confined spaces, is to make sure that you stop that threat. And you need to do that safely, efficiently, and effectively. And so a lot of, this idea is that you can choose safety in a death match, right? And people need to remember also that the 3Ds, detect, diffuse, defend, are first and foremost internal concepts and principles that influence your external behavior. In other words, if you didn't have the self-awareness because of the past experience, you'd have never articulated. In other words, when you showed up at that scene, David, your self-awareness created your situational awareness, and that influenced your internal conversation with yourself, which influenced your actual verbal tactics to your sergeants, which influenced the D3, the actual fight, which was, okay, we got to secure perimeter. This guy's not hurting anybody. Let's just wait. And so I want you to understand that, because I know that, at some point, and I never asked you this, but, because you called me out of the blue when this happened, and I was honored that you thought that I might be a resource, because we'd never really talked in detail. I mean, you came to Texas and did my course, and we met briefly there. But a lot of people don't understand the subtlety of how the brain works. And so everything is like, well, how do I do a gun disarm? How do I get out of a headlock? How do I do this knife disarm? And there's so much more going on in the emotional psychological world before you actually can get to this theoretical complex motor skill.
That's absolutely true. And I mean, I didn't tell you then, but I mean, I've had numerous martial arts influences from the time that I was a kid. Taekwondo, karate, and Chinese shoshu, and all kinds of different things. Boxing, I've done jiu-jitsu, and not one of those things came into this situation.
Huh.
When shit goes down, you go to what you said, instincts, and your body just responds. And if you can let go just enough to let your body do what it needs to do, it will do what it's supposed to do anyways.
Right.
Your body will save you. Your mind will make it do it. You just have to not get in the middle and get in the way.
Yeah, that's so good. Well, that's what we always say, hey, don't confuse technical with tactical. And when you look at whether it's body cam, helmet cam, surveillance, CCTV, and you watch extreme violent encounters, you don't see technical movements. Right? What you described and how you moved, and this is going to tell you, is like those two cuts in the back of your head, that's because your body went primal and bypassed all your cognition. When you decided to stay in the fight and move towards the danger, you did the protective version of what we teach in the SPEAR system. And the merit here, and I don't listen, guys listening to this isn't the fucking infomercial for the SPEAR. The thesis statement of all SPEAR training, and this is going back almost 3 decades, in my original PowerPoint teaching cops, the question was, what does your body do prior to any training? Does that movement have a protective application, something that you can use to protect yourself in a fight? If it does, why aren't we using that as the kind of the nucleus of all of our self-defense, right? And so, what you did is you went primal, gross motor, created space, disengaged, and then you transition to a complex motor skill. In this case, it was drawing your firearm because the force and the danger were in concert. They paralleled each other. And that's what we always tell people is people think when I'm saying, hey, I want you to learn the spear, it's like the fascia, the connective tissue that's going to bridge this gap between startle flinch and like in crazy close quarter danger and complex motor skill. You need a buffer where your body recalibrates, where you can create emotional, psychological space, a little balance there. And that was that gap. Where what you described when everything you did to throw the guy away from you was primal gross motor survival. When you went knee on chest to try and stabilize the guy and then control and arrest, that was complex motor skill. When he stabbed you again and you saw blood spurting out of your arm, that was you going, oh fuck. Okay. Like this is no longer a grappling match. This has now moved into something different. And what's interesting is you had already intuited that he was trying to kill you before, but you downgraded the danger when you got rid of him, right? And you went back to that's a really interesting to think about, to reflect on.
Well, and it kind of goes back to the profession that you're in. If you're not a soldier, if you're not a cop, if you're not in a job where, hey, my job is to get physical and control people, bouncers, boxers, MMA fighters. My job's to go in the ring and fight. Soldiers and cops, it's different. You 100% know the guy that you're going against is most likely trying to kill you. Sometimes they're not as a cop. Sometimes they just want to get in a fight. Sometimes they just want to get away because they don't want to get arrested. But in situations like this, they want to kill you. And you kind of, like you said, you do downplay it. You do look at it and go, if you acknowledge it, it's almost a little trick inside your brain to keep you from getting stuck in that fear. Like, oh my God, this guy's trying to kill me. You just, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my, you just, okay, while you're standing there saying, oh my God, he's killing me.
Right.
So if you just kind of downplay it, like, yeah, whatever, he's trying to kill me. And next, let's move. It's a way to trick your brain to think past that. And I wanted to say, like, when you said you're not pushing the spear method, it kind of goes to whatever your modology of discipline for working out or for martial arts or for combat, for eating, for anything. Nothing is the golden rule. Like, hey, this will save you. Hey, this will make you look like shredded. You'll be beautiful. This workout will make sure that you get what you want. Nothing is guaranteed. You got to find what works for you, what works for your body, what works for your mind, what works for your job, what gets you where you need to go. And the only reason that people might say you push it is because, well, you teach the spear methodology. So of course it's going to come up. If you taught Spanish, we'd be talking about you teaching Spanish.
Correct.
And in this case, it 100% is exactly what happened. It was the spear method, and it was gross motor, and it was not thought out. I mean, I'm sorry to say, but it's not like I practiced the workouts.
Right.
I practice and go, okay, I'm going to get in a fight and this is what's going to happen. Like, I have no clue. I have no fucking clue what's going to happen. What's going to happen is going to happen. And I'm going to do the best that I can to make sure that I go home, and if I can make sure everybody goes home, I will. And if it requires that someone's not going home, I'm going home, period.
Right. Yeah. Let me circle back real quick to something you said. Like, a lot of people, they think that the spear is a replacement for martial art. And we're very clear that the spear, if you understand it, is almost like an organic airbag that deploys during a collision in a car accident. So the airbag deploys in a car accident. It does so without your permission because some genius figured out how to, build an airbag that gets tripped by a certain amount of pressure hitting the car. Well, your startle flinch is very similar to that, but it picks up danger from a distance, triggered through auditory, visual, and tactile sense. And it will deploy the startle flinch response, which is, I liken it metaphorically to this organic airbag, where it's going to push away the danger as violently and as quickly as it can to create space between you and the threat. And that's basically what it does. when we do our courses, whether it's a 1-day course, a trainer course, a weekend course, we're trying to help people rediscover this, because if your fixation is on a complex motor skill, then you could really be putting yourself in more danger or be overwhelmed by the fear, because what you had practiced and kind of married yourself to was so technical that, you know, when your physiology is overriding all that, maybe your brain goes, oh shit, this isn't working. And you can see that in a lot of fights where people go fetal and they're conscious, but you can see they can't move from there. But I want people listening to this to understand that you can study the spear system and keep studying jiu-jitsu, keep studying taekwondo, keep studying boxing, Krav Maga. In fact, most of the people that really do embrace the spear recognize it is just that. It's something that you're going to be able to tap into in a holy shit moment. And the other stuff is maybe it'll influence part of the follow-up. Or it's just part of your moving meditation, the shit you do because you love going to jits, or you love going to taekwondo, or you love boxing or whatever. So, you know, I just wish people would not confuse that, because it is life-saving stuff, as you discovered. And I remember when you called me last year, you know, you told me quite emotionally, like you said everything, paraphrasing here because it was a while ago, but you said everything that you said happened. Yeah.
Yeah. You know? The tingle, the attack, the startle flinch, slow motion, like all the stuff that you discuss in the course, it all happened. And for me personally, like going through those things in your course is akin to the what if game.
Right.
You know, my chief came to see me in the hospital, and she couldn't speak, you know. She was just like, I don't know what to say to you. I'm glad you're okay. You know, is there anything that you can think of? And I just looked at her and I said, ma'am, I play the what if game in the most dire scenarios. You know, every door I go to, every situation I'm in, you know, after a call, you know, me and my fellow officers are kind of debriefing it a little bit, you know, kind of lightening the mood, maybe a joke here and there. In my brain, I'm thinking, what if someone stepped out from that pillar right there and just started dropping my partners? Where would I go? Where's cover? What would I radio? Where am I? What's my location? What do I tell people responding? How do they deal with this? I do that. It takes 2 seconds. It's, you know, in your head afterwards, you can go, oh, thank God that didn't happen. But I do that constantly. Everywhere I go, every call I go, even when I'm out at the grocery store with my wife, you know, I'm thinking, what if an active shooter walked in here right now, started shooting? What if a guy walked in with a knife, started stabbing people? What would I do? How would I deal with this scenario? What do I have? What are my tools? What can I do? You know? And I want to say that doing that kind of stuff in your brain gives you like a split-second head start, because it's no longer an initial situation that you're dealing with. Now you have the chance of your brain recalling it and pulling up a play card and going, hey, remember when you thought about this? That's exactly what's happening. Okay, execute this plan. And it happens in 1/100th of a second, but it gives your brain that much of an edge to cut down that OODA loop and to respond and get back in the situation.
It's the difference between improvising and adapting. Exactly. And there's a sports science or sports psychology term for that called metacognition. And we go over it in our longer course, but it's this idea that if you've mentally rehearsed and in an ideal world physically practiced, and it was replicating reality, that you've created these mental blueprints, that your neurons, the myelinization of how you move, your brain has a schematic for something. And now what you're doing is you're just kind of riffing off of those notes that you already know. You're not like starting at scratch trying to tune your guitar, right? You're like you're already jamming. So Dave, this was awesome. I love how honest you were. I appreciated, you know, you being totally transparent with what you went through. There's probably people out here listening going like, that wasn't the answer I expected. He was military for a decade. He was cop for a decade. Wow, it took him because people are cavalier about that, and I think most people do that in the same way you and your wife or your buddies joke and make, kind of morbid jokes around stuff. It's stuff that we all do to keep ourselves a little bit sane. Yeah. It's legendary in that type A, community. Anyhow, but I think it's important also to be honest and transparent, because that's inspiring, and it's real life. The main thing, just like anything else, this was like just a 6-month long wad, right? Like a chipper where I'm not quitting. I'm not going to give up. I'm not stopping. And then one day, you're on to the next version of yourself, the next evolution, iteration of your emotional, psychological, physical growth. So, thank you for sharing this. And I know that a lot of the cops who listen to our show are gonna take a lot from this. But I kind of want to remind people that you don't need to be a police officer to understand the deeper message. One of the most important ones was, David's rules about how he handles relationship issues with his wife. Remember that applies to all of us. And even in this crazy fucking era of active shooters and spontaneous violence and stuff like that, going into any place, I mean, you guys all do it now when you drive. Everyone is a defensive driver. They just don't call it that. You look on, you're looking for, oh, look, there's traffic up there. The lights are here. What's a shortcut? Where would I go? How would I pull over here? And if you just applied that observation, situation awareness now when you go into a restaurant or supermarket, where's an escape route? Where are improvised weapons? Who looks like a freak? I mean, the people who see that, and some of you listening to this might go, that's paranoid. It's not. It's just the way, it's the way people who have if we can call it a survival gene, think, right? When I go out to dinner or lunch with a bunch of protectors, it's like, who can get their back to the wall first, right? And it's like, it's a joke, right? And it's almost like, okay, who's armed, who's not? Okay. But we joke about it. Nobody's paranoid. Nobody's sweating. We're still laughing and enjoying lunch. But if the shit hit the fan, you're tying your shoelace and we're fucking already running.
Yeah. So. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And it's the difference between two things. Number one, it's not paranoia when it goes down. When shit happens, you're prepared.
Right.
When shit happens, you're paranoid.
Right.
And it's not, to me, paranoid. It's the difference between walking around in a fog and walking around aware of your surroundings.
Correct.
Being aware is not paranoid. It's just being aware, giving your body a 360 picture of what's around you at all times. There's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
Stop doing that in our society because we're too busy looking at the text messages on our phone. And two other things, because I know we got to get out of here, but there's a difference between courage and arrogance. You can be courageous and face fear without, being a douchebag and saying you're not afraid. Saying you're not afraid is not courage.
Right.
Lying to yourself. Everyone gets afraid. It's okay to be afraid. It's how you feel.
Right. And if you're not afraid, then you don't need courage. Right.
Well, if you're not afraid, you're not paying attention.
Right. Well, I'm actually also making fun of the concept, literally, that if you're not afraid to do something, then you can't be courageous because you don't need courage. Courage is always when you're afraid and you need to do.
Absolutely. And the other thing is just the whole working out thing. Like, working out's great. Everyone wants to look good naked, but, working out is a method of survival. And in these kind of jobs, working out keeps your stress level low. It keeps your hormones all in line. It lowers your stress. It decreases risk of heart failure. And that's a huge concern in our profession.
For sure.
You're constantly under stress and you're getting adrenaline dumps and your cortisol levels are up. Working out is a way of keeping your body and your mind healthy. And that translates into your relationships and into being a cop, because I am more confident when I'm out there, because I know if I have to run or if I have to chase someone, I will. I think because I'm more confident, I don't get into physical altercations with people anywhere near as much as other people might, because if I'm able to treat someone like a human being, that might be the respect that they need to just,
right.
You know, once I talk to someone and they realize that I'm treating them as an equal. I'm not walking over and saying, I have a badge, you shut up and you listen to me.
Right.
No, what's going on? Tell me what's happening. Let me figure out how I can help you, because that's what cops do. We help people. When the shit goes down and you don't know what to do, you call 911 and you want the cop to show up and help you and make whatever's happening that's making bad stuff happen. You want it to stop, you know? So it's just a matter of approaching things on a much calmer level. You know, people who go at things cocky and arrogant, they're like, well, I'll just make it physical before they can make it physical, because if I make it physical, then I'm in control and I'll win. And that isn't always the answer. You might find out the person you're trying to force to do stuff is a whole lot more capable than you are, and they already have their plan.
Right. I dig it, man. Simple rules for success. David, thank you so much, buddy. Good to see you again. Glad you're back at work and feeling good. And we will stay in touch. And I'm sure, I don't know what you're doing this summer, but why don't you and the wife come to our combatives camp?
I'd love to.
In August. Come as my guest.
In August, I'm a little bit busy. My wife's having our first child.
You know, it's a little selfish to have the kid around the time of my camp, but
I know. It's terrible.
We'll rain check. But congratulations, man.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
That's awesome.
Thank you for having me, Tony. I really appreciate you letting me put this out.
No.
To help someone else that's dealing with the same stuff, I'm more than happy to.
Hey, no, it's important. I know that it's cathartic and it's inspirational. So I'm glad you're able to share it. You be safe, man. We'll speak to you soon.
Sounds good. I appreciate it.
Take care.